Hello and welcome to the aForm Show, the premier podcast for all things architecture and design across the MENA region. Welcome to your tribe. Hey, are you tired of specifying boring door hardware? If your ironmongery specs feel more meh than wow, it's time to have a look at EuroArt, the skilled British experts for door hardware, furniture fittings, glass fittings, and sliding doors that are taking your specification headaches away. From top quality pocket doors to leather wrap door handles, EuroArt offers hardware that's both durable and stunning for all budget levels. Whether you're designing or upgrading a residential or commercial project, their finishes such as satin, titanium blue, and gunmetal bring sophistication to any space. You need to match a finish or customize a pull handle to your customer's unusual design ideas? No worries, EuroArt has got you covered. For hardware that stands the test of time and looks great while doing it, visit euro-art.co.uk or send an email to hello@euro-art.co.uk or visit the EuroArt Design Center in Al Garhoud, Dubai for a touch and feel experience. Now, back to the episode. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. Today, we are joined by James Sharples, Project Director at Bauhaus Project Management in Dubai. With extensive experience in delivering high-profile developments, James plays a key role in ensuring projects are delivered on time and, most importantly, within budget. We'll dive into the challenges of project management and how designers can fill in the right gaps at the right times. We are beyond excited to have him on the show, so without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the show, James.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I know that this took a bit of while to sort of get together, and I want to publicly apologize for all the back and forth, but we're here and it's happening, so I'm excited.
I think there's a lot of back and forth on my side as well. I know you're a very busy man, so I do forgive you.
All right. Okay. So on that note, I think it's only apt where I want to start off with is kind of the industry at large. Obviously, you come with a lot of experience working with almost, I would say, like a sort of third party to the entire project, so to speak, wherein you're kind of, agnostic to certain requirements. You're not really for the client, you're not really for the designer. Your intent would be that the project needs to succeed, right? So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you, quite controversially, what frustrates you about this industry that no project manager really talks about? There must be something which sort of like grinds your carrots, I would think.
Yes. Yeah. And again, reiterating what you just said, we will be appointed on behalf of the client as a third party representative, which doesn't mean you're against everyone on the project. I very much think we're a team collaborating for the same end goal. And I will always say that on every single project that I'm on. In terms of what frustrates me in the industry, I would say it would be lack of accountability for certain stakeholders, right? Every single person in that project has a role to play. Clients, architects, designers, AORs, consultants, whatever it may be, we've all got prime objectives. And what I do find, and it can be the client's discrepancy, shall we say, but rather than looking at solutions, they focus on the issues and pointing fingers, which it should not be the case, right? There will be hurdles along any project, which everyone has to come together as a team to conclude that, True. And I feel like sometimes you can get swamped in, he did this, he did that.
Yeah. There's a lot of finger pointing that happens, I would think.
But rather than that, I think you focus on the solution and come to a decision with the client, with all parties involved to move forward with the project.
I kind of then want to sort of get your opinion on something, which is, again, a conversation that I had with a client recently, which was kind of along the lines of, it is ideally in sort of utopia, you hire a designer, an architect or the design team, whatever it may be, they prepare a package. That package goes out to tender, contractor bids for it, contractor builds, happy days, right? Under the assumption that the drawing package is, I don't want to use the word complete, but probably has at the very least design intent, right? Now, the conversation that I was having with the client was around the lines of, he obviously was expecting a lot of detail, basically every sort of square inch of the villa to be sort of detailed, designed, and so on. And then I was kind of explaining the whole, what a typical detail is, and, kind of the fact that we work in BIM helps the process and so on. But there sort of seemed this mentality that, listen, if I get a complete package, I'm sort of guaranteeing that there'll be no changes that happen further on. To which I was also saying, I'm pretty sure there'll be something always comes up, even if it's out of your control, a site condition, a supply chain problem, whatever, right? So I kind of want to get your opinion on this, which is, do you think a more developed or a highly developed, let's say that a typical package takes about 3 months. Let's say a design team gets 9 months, right, to design a package. Do you think that package would really impact timelines of a project that significantly?
I would say a lot of the items which will be picked up might be missing in a design package would probably be picked up as requests for information during the tender. So again, a lot of those items which are potentially provisional costs, which the contractor would submit, you can clarify at the tender stages. So typically we don't want too many provisional sums in the contract, right? Because it does open up the client for potential variations.
Yeah.
But again, there's certain items in that, yes, you might have to in the interest of the client, the project, you've got to move forward because you might not be able to agree on a detail with the client. Okay. So yes, you can focus on that later. But in terms of whether it's taking longer for the design process, yes, it's always good to have a concrete design, but I'm not saying if you do a shorter design period, and yes, some items might have been missed. If you're tendering to the right contractors, they should probably pick that up anyway, and they'll raise it during the tender period, requesting the architect, the designer for that information. And from there, it's a case of properly documenting that information from my side via post-tender clarifications or whatever it may be, making sure that when we're entering into that contract, the client is as covered as they can be. And the designers are. So everyone's on the same page. The contractor's clear, the client's clear. There's clear documentation to revert back to if there are any discrepancies on site. And I think it simplifies the construction process at a later date.
True. I think it does sort of, in the grand scheme of things, keeps the train moving along, I would think, which is kind of the case I was trying to make. So I'm glad.
It was a good answer, was it?
Yeah. I was like, all right. So I was kind of on the right track. So, all right. I then want to ask, again, based on your experience here, again, when working with designers, I know that we kind of touched upon it before, but if you could be a bit more tactical and from your experience kind of say, listen, guys, after, sort of being, project manager role across X number of projects, I feel like these are the common things which as a designer, you guys are maybe not looking at, or maybe there's not enough time to look at it. Maybe it's kind of getting, just rushed out the door last minute. If there was these, sort of 2, 3, even if they're drawings, for example, what do you think they'd be?
As in what kind of frustrates me with kind of certain packages that might happen? I would say maybe impractical implementation on site, for example, like something might be designed which isn't technically possible as per site condition. Or we're looking at timelines or materials which don't meet the timeline. These things, and again, it's not an issue, we can resolve it, but to resolve that, you've got to go back to the design, And you've got to look at alternative materials. You've got to look at alternative methods, which can be quite difficult to put forward to the client because we promised the client X, but Mr. Client, you can't have that. Because it's not possible. It's not buildable. So certain areas like that can be difficult, but it's a case of working together as a team and knocking our heads together to make sure that what's achievable and what's best for the client in the quickest possible times. And that is a case of working with the contractors as well to come up with a buildable solution and materials which fit our timeline.
Makes sense. All right. I kind of then want to also ask you, again, since we're on the sort of discussion about, designers being involved in the project lifecycle, anything that you could share which would be, well, I suppose sort of a key learning on your side, but something that would help the design team sort of fill in these gaps which maybe they don't realize they're missing out on?
Well, I think scope is essential. Every architect, interior designer, they need to understand what their scope is, In the residential market, you do see the packages getting split quite considerably as well, which can lead to things getting missed. And we call them scope gaps as well. So
when you say missed, you're saying, when you say split, you mean, for example, a structure package is tendered separately and packages tendered separately?
No, not necessarily. So I'm referring more to kind of the interior side of things, for example, right? Okay. So we might be splitting kitchens, sanitary ware, client direct packages, which again, it's not an issue, but certain items I feel like you've got to be clever about which ones you do go direct on, because you don't want to relieve certain contractors of their responsibilities, because this is something that I try and get through to some of my clients at times. Yes, you are saving 10% overhead on the contractor, for that nominated supplier. But at the same time, you've got to look at the bigger picture. If we delay on certain packages, then that's a delay to your program, which means additional time on your program, also completion. So in that respect, I feel like certain items which you've got to be clever about in terms of what you procure directly.
It does make sense. Again, I don't want to name the project, but if there are any of my colleagues listening, they know exactly which project I'm talking about, where it's happened exactly that way, wherein the main contract has been sort of so fractured at an architecture level, even not even an interior level, wherein literally there's like a contractor doing superstructure, there's a contractor doing screed, there's another contract, and these are all separate contractors, right? And I just looked at the client and I said, listen, who's taking liability? At the end of the day, if something goes wrong, it'll kind of be like that Spider-Man meme, where they're just like pointing at each other saying...
Exactly. And this is why I always say is looking at the bigger picture, because then you've got to look at the DLP periods, for example, as well. It's like, well, it's not sitting with my main contractor anymore because I went direct on this. Exactly. And it's like, so where's the responsibility? Exactly. And it's kind of, I always say, yes, you might be saving you 10% overheads early days, but is it worth X, Y, Z? Right. Because looking at the bigger picture, that's what I find. Okay. But yes, I like going direct on certain packages, 100%.
Okay. So what's your thoughts on, I don't want to use the word sort of vendor specialists and things like that, because I know that, I suppose when you're still in the resi sector, it's fairly okay to sort of manage all the stakeholders together. On much larger projects, it obviously becomes, kind of chaotic, I would think. Yeah. I have an impression that there needs to be sort of one designer. It can either be an architect or an interior designer, but there needs to be one designer that takes design ownership of the entire project. When I say design ownership, I'm saying it may be an architect, but an architect that also sort of looks at what's happening with interiors, with landscape, with specialist lighting. Now, this, obviously, he's not the specialist for these, but there needs to be someone to cohesively sort of put everything together.
Coordination. I think that's so important on any project. Yeah. Because you could have your interiors going in one direction and your architectural in another. Right. And all of a sudden you've got two packages on site which don't
talk to each other.
Don't talk to each other. And you see it all the time. And again, with changes and things like that. Right. You'll see maybe the architectural package gets changed. Yes, it might have been coordinated before, right? But then there's been a change to the architectural pack, which hasn't been conveyed to, it might be a different interior design company or whatever it may be, but it's been missed somewhere, right? And then there's confusion. Right. The fit out contractor on site or the main company.
Makes sense. I think that's also why I've sort of noticed a lot of clients prefer now going down, just for the purposes of efficiency, going down the whole sort of design and build, route of things. What's your sort of experience with that, with both on the client side and then actual projects? Do you think there's a benefit going down an in-house design build?
I think design and build is good for speed, right? Single source design and build, procurement approach, yes, speed. But the problem is with design and build, you don't have the reassurance, should I say, when with the traditional approach whereby you're tendering to a few different contractors.
Oh, I see.
You don't have cost certainty. So, gotcha. And the materials, the specifications they've used, there's no one really overseeing that. Gotcha. If that makes sense.
That's true.
And the client's not educated enough to understand what's good and what's bad. They're not educated enough, but...
Yeah. No, I get you. Because it's sort of, technically nothing's really open for tender, right? Because it's all like separate bids. Well, not separate bids. I mean, it's no bid.
There's no bid.
It's a procurement guy just saying, yep, this one, not this one, this one, not this one, this one.
Yeah. Yeah. So it depends on the client, really. And this is something that we do from the outset to understand what's more important for the client.
Okay.
I mean, yes, it takes time to tender.
Okay.
100%. It does. But it also takes time for the D&B contractor, if you're going to go down that route, to submit their offer. Yes, they can do it in sync with their design, and that saves time. But ultimately, it still takes time for you to review that. And then when that contractor submits that cost to the client, they have nothing to compare it to. So they could be like, oh, this feels very expensive. But what's...
Yeah. But in comparison to what?
What benchmarking against what?
Yeah, true.
So yeah, there's on that side of things. Yeah,
okay.
I can't remember the answer to the question.
No, it's I'm trying to get sort of what your opinion would be about the sort of design and build side of things. I kind of share a similar opinion, I think, actually.
Yeah, I think if the client quality reassurance, I think the client will go down the traditional route.
Right.
If it's speed and kind of they need to get into, well, again, it depends on the requirements of the client ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, I might sound a bit biased here, maybe. And if I do, I apologize to all the contractors and fit out people listening in. But I think when you get a dedicated designer on board, and now this is again architect, interior designer, it doesn't really matter, but a dedicated designer on board, I think the sort of intangible value that a designer brings just by the virtue of design is typically not factored in. So yes, you could have one product, which is a D&B product, and it was done efficiently within budget. And there was another product which had a designer, which probably went 10% over budget and was probably 3 months late. But apple to apple, if you compare both products, I'm willing to bet that the one with the designer, the end product, is significantly better than what the D&B one was.
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. Like I say, so there's the contract, D&B or traditional, right? In my opinion, you'll probably pay, with traditional, it's more open and transparent. D&B, all the design costs are still factored into that contractor's offer, right? Yeah. You just don't see it as much.
Right.
Kind of with the post-contract fees, for example, the client pays on a traditional project, right?
Right.
They'll still be paying that in
That's
the D&B. In my opinion, it's just, you don't see it.
It's a hidden cost. Quite literally a hidden cost.
Yeah, I might be exaggerating a bit there, but it's true.
It's true. All right. So kind of then shifting gears a little bit, there might be a couple of listeners who are thinking, you know what? I kind of like what James is saying. I think he should project manage our project. So if you had to sort of talk to designers and be like, hey guys, this is what I can do. This is where I would probably add value. What would you want to tell them?
I think from the outset, and it's from my side, the fundamentals of any project is making sure that the team are all on the same page. Consultant team, client, and everyone else, which just avoids disappointment later on, right? And being realistic. So I suppose the first thing I would say to you, Alan, would be, right, let's sit down. We agree a timeline, key milestone dates from the outset. Mr. Client, we've got approval timelines for you. Are you comfortable with these? Mr. Designer, Mr.
Whoever,
MEP consultant, this is my program. This is what I'm envisaging. Are you aligned?
Yeah.
Everyone sits down and says, yes, James, I'm happy with X, Y, Z. And the client, more importantly, says, And then it's setting the stage and the foundations of a project. So everyone's clear on the procurement strategy that we're going to go down and what we are doing and what we're not doing. Right. Yeah. And again, it leads back to kind of scope as well and coordination.
Yeah.
If we've got clear milestone dates throughout the project, everyone's on the same page and we can revert back if there is a delay. We know where that delay's come from because we've got a program which we're tracking throughout the process.
Right.
Because projects go on for a long time, right?
Yeah.
They can do. Okay. It depends on the size of the project, right?
True.
There will be things that happen within that timeline, which 6 months go down the line,
was a non-starter. Yeah,
you forget. And any normal person, I know I forget. I've got to have documentation to go back and say, well, what went on here? We're at handover. It was like, well, we're a month delayed or we're a month ahead, great.
Right. No one really questions when you're ahead, though. When you're ahead, it's all happy days.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's like, no, explain to me how we're ahead. I want to know.
Yeah. But again, from my side, documentation is really important. Again, minutes of meetings, weekly reporting, project schedules, milestone dates, making sure all parties are aligned, weekly meetings. Someone needs to chair those meetings, take responsibility, set agendas, just having more structure to certain meetings. Yeah. So it's more efficient in the long run.
True.
In my opinion.
Yeah. Interesting. You touched upon, again, another topic which I find a bit close to heart, because these are, again, conversations which I've been having, the kind of rattling around upstairs. So I'd like to get your opinion on it, which is about scope definition and inherently then milestones linked to those scopes. So I kind of feel traditionally there's always been sort of, you have your concept, you have a schematic, you have your DD, then you tender out, etc. Yep. But I feel like those lines are now being blurred with different requirements from different clients. So, now, I suppose you always had a pre-concept even, but there's now also, sort of a 50% concept, a concept plus, or a detailed schematic design, which is kind of like, what really mixing is that?
Yeah.
And to be honest, when I think of it from a designer point of view, I can see why that is, because obviously different studios are geared and prefer certain types of milestones just because of that's how they operate. Yeah. My question is, when it comes to you and you now represent the project or the client even, and you go out to 5 design studios and you say, hey guys, this is my project, this is my RFQ, if you will.
Yeah.
And you suddenly get responses from them saying, oh, but we need 4 weeks for a concept. We need 8 weeks for a concept. We need 1 week for a concept. Yeah. How do you sort of standardize that and bring everyone onto one page?
So with our RFP, RFQ, we will set out clear milestones of what we expect. And it's clear from those RFPs what we would expect. So everyone's on the level fair playing field. And again, it goes back to kind of contractors as well, comparing like for like.
Right.
And again, we set a timeline. Again, not every designer can adhere to the timelines. So it's not the end of the world. We revert to the client. We meet the designers. Why can't you? Yeah. And understand from their perspective, and the client will be here with us.
Yeah.
And to understand why. Right. And what are the constraints? Is it resourcing? Okay, well, resourcing it might be an issue. Okay. Yeah. But again, as long as we don't want to be signing up architects or interior designers to milestone dates which are not achieved, right?
That doesn't do anyone any good.
It doesn't. And it's a case of transparency. And this is what I always say, kind of being transparent on any project is so important, making sure that we're making informed decisions together. So in terms of going back to your earlier point, in terms of RFPs, so yes, we would set a clear scope for the designers to bid, and we would ideally like them to all be bidding on the same thing in terms of our scope, which we're expecting, which should give us standardized, normalized figures back. Now, It's not always the case, right? Like you rightly mentioned.
True.
And then we would have to, depending on the price as well, and whether it's a shortlisted designer, we meet with them and understand what suits them better. So because again, ultimately we've got the same end goal, detailed design package at the end of it, right?
True.
Some clients might like a 50% schematic.
Yeah, exactly. My sort of gripe with that is perhaps it needs to be a bit more specific. And what I mean by that is, for example, and I know there are many designers that do this, but there are probably some that don't, which is, for example, if you are going to commit to, say, a 50% schematic, if you also, along with your bid, were to give like a drawing list, right? Then that sort of makes it a bit more clear to everyone and allows you to have a further conversation saying, okay, we don't really need, like an ironmongery schedule, for example, at this point that can, kind of go out. But we would prefer if you were to give us a couple of more sections or a couple of more elevations or something. For example, do you think there's value in doing it down to that sort of granular level conversation?
A good question.
I'm glad I asked one. I got one of them in.
Would it be beneficial being that granular? I mean, the more detail, the better for tender purposes. Are we going to wait for those granular details? Probably not, because like I say, you deal with it. You can deal with it at later stages in shop drawings, etc. as well. But yes.
All right. As we sort of then wind down the episode, I suppose, I like asking this question to kind of see where everyone's sort of at in the industry, so to speak, which is, I call the magic wand question, which is if you could wave your magic wand today and fix something in the industry that doesn't really bother you, but in your mind, you're like, I could do this a bit better. If everyone just listened to me, I would do this better. Do you have anything that you'd want to change?
On the smaller scale, I think the larger scale projects, again, contractual obligations, etc. I think it's okay. I think on the smaller side, in terms of Dubai especially, it can vary in terms of contractually, the clients and the smaller scale projects, they're going into contract. They're not going into contracts. They're signing off on a bill of quantities with no real clear rates or understanding of what they're signing off on. So
that is very true.
I think one thing from that side, magic wand, I suppose you can't ask everyone to be very clued up on construction knowledge because everyone's got different specialities. But what I would say is maybe a regulatory authority for contracts in construction, because I hear it and see it all the time in terms of clients coming to me saying, James, this has happened. The contractor's run off with my advance. Right. How much was your advance? 50%.
Oh my.
do you see I'm not saying that happened, but it's just kind of it's more just of an example. And you do see it. You do see it. Might not be malicious from the contractor. It might be kind of, I don't know, the company's
things happen.
Yeah.
But then do you think it needs to be more the regulatory authority, or do you think it needs to be more just almost like a government mandate that any project above a certain size you need to follow, FIDIC, for example, something like that?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah.
Okay. But I think that might be a bit more of a sort of universal law where no one can really kind of get out from that. You have to do it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like as much as I love compliance to an extent, I feel like the minute you sort of add that in and there's nuance to it, there's always ways sort of around it.
Yeah.
So maybe something as, just straightforward. You're doing more than 3,000 square feet, fit a contract. The end.
Yeah.
There's no ands or buts about it or anything like that.
But I think it's not only good for the client, it's good for kind of the contractor.
100%.
It's kind of I think there's a lot of very wishy-washy at the moment, smaller scale.
Yeah.
I hope to think when I'm on the project that never happens, but
touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood. But that's my magic wand.
True. That's a pretty good wand, actually. Because funnily enough, I quite literally was having this conversation recently on a panel where we were talking about regulation. Talking about what it would take to have, again, I mean, it was more from a designer point of view. So would having someone like, Reba, for example, or the AIA or
stages,
do you then take their stages as sort of like God's word, so to speak? Like, this is what we do. Do you then follow their contracts? But then it kind of came back around saying those are kind of established for a different market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They don't necessarily translate well. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure most of it does, but there's some part of it that doesn't really apply to a market here, right? Yeah. Because along the same line, for example, we were talking about permitting times. In the UK, for example, if you kind of lump in everything, which is your approvals and city planning and everything put together, just a permit, you're looking at 4 to 6 months, wherein here you're probably looking at an entire package being done in that time, if not already hit ground.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I feel like it needs to be, I don't have an answer for it. I feel like it needs to be
a hybrid.
A hybrid of some kind, yeah. Because on the one hand, you do want some sort of government intervention for sure, because that keeps everyone honest and straight. But then at the same time, you also need a bit of flexibility, Yeah. It's kind of like an oxymoron. Like you need rigidity, but you need flexibility at the same time. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just ranting.
No, I feel you. It's another magic wand.
I should probably ask myself the same question. Like, that's my magic wand. As part of the closing tradition on the show, we have something called the aForm tradition. What this is basically a question that's been asked by a previous guest, not knowing who the next guest is. So you don't know who asked the question. The person who asked the question doesn't know who's going to get the question. So sometimes it's a bit of fun, and sometimes it's quite philosophical.
Okay.
So we have a pool of these questions that we typically pick these out from. Okay. So I am going to pull up your question now. Don't feel the need to sort of impulsively answer. You can take your time, think about it if you want. You can grab a coffee if you want. It's up to you. The question that you have today is, hold on, let me see if I get this right. Ooh. Oh, I've gone down the philosophical route.
Oh, no.
All right. All right. Here it goes. So, what inspires you to become a better version of yourself?
What inspires me to become a better version of myself?
That is the question.
I
I suppose we've like departed from design now. So now it's like open game.
I wasn't expecting that.
It could be the sun. It could be the clouds. It could be anything. What inspires you to be a better version of yourself?
So I suppose work-life balance now for me as well. I've now got a new family.
Oh.
Well, yeah, I've got a little girl and another child on the way. So now it's a case of working out priorities as well. But it's not, I know my priorities, right? Right. But having a happy medium between them. And again, is making sure that work-life balance, making sure that family time and work is managed effectively.
Okay. Work-life balance is an interesting one because whenever I hear that, I sort of have like a reaction to it.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, on the one hand, I get it, right? And I feel like it's a bit misunderstood. And the reason why I bring this up is because my interpretation of it is that I think it was Jeff Bezos who actually made the comparison. Pretty sure it was him. He kind of took away the balance out of it. And he says, if you think of it more, because balance implies that everything is in balance, that it's always 50-50, right? Which, at least in our industry, I don't think really happens.
No.
Or if it does, something else is really wrong, I would think. But it never really is 50-50. No. It can skew one way or the other, which is fine. But to kind of, assume that, I'm going to start work at this time, I'm going to end work at this time, and nothing's going to happen in between. That's not really how it works.
100%. I completely agree with that. It was more referring to is kind of I think rest time is so important for you to be the best of yourself as well.
Agreed. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I think the comparison that he made was more about work-life harmony, wherein rather than trying to sort of make this wall between these two worlds, where you let both the worlds sort of permeate. Right? Yeah. Wherein you do go to your kid's recital at 10 in the morning, probably missing a meeting, but then you probably work another 3 hours later on at nighttime after your kids are asleep. Great. So net, you're still kind of being productive and you're still doing what you need to do, just not in the sort of conventional timeline, so to speak. And I thought that was a much more better way to frame it, at least for me.
I really like that, and I'm going to use that moving forward. So thank you.
Work-life harmony.
You explained it so well as well. I get you. No, I agree.
And the reason is because I too have a new family, and I've gone through this exact same thing, wherein with being a full-time architect and having the podcast, you can only imagine that I live and die by my calendar. And if it's not on, like today, something goes wrong, it kind of has a domino effect on everyone. Yeah. So, and to be honest, there's a lot of guilt that also comes as well, because you're like, I'm doing all this stuff and I'm doing this and I'm doing this, but what does it really matter if, I can't spend time with my kid, and all of that sort of kicks in as well. So I found the way that I framed it is that, no, it's kind of all one. There isn't really one or the other. Yes. And a nuance to that, I would like to say between work-life harmony, there's also seasons. Yep. So I kind of see it as a quarter, right? So, and this is a conversation I have with my partner quite regularly, but I'm like, this quarter, which is the next 3 months, I don't see a lot happening. I think it's fairly chill. Yeah. I don't no craziness happening around. But then there are quarters where I'm like, listen, everything's stacked up, everything's loaded. There's no give anywhere. I probably won't be home when I'm supposed to be. I probably will miss this. Yeah. But it's for a fixed period of time. It's not indefinitely. Yeah. And I think that's where people kind of make the mistake. Yeah. Where they're like, oh, but it needs to be like that all the time, forever.
Yeah. No. So you're absolutely right. Yeah. I do like that way of thinking about it as well. Yes.
All right. I feel like I kind of stepped all over your answer, but
no, I liked it. It's exactly what I was thinking as well.
All right. Cool. So for everyone listening in and on behalf of the team, I'd like to Thank you so much for your time. I keep shouting this from the high heavens that the show is only possible with people like yourself donating your time and adding value to everyone listening. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to get in touch with James, we'll have a bunch of contact details down in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And for the rest of you guys, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormer, thank you so much for your time. If this episode added any value to you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. If you want to carry on the discussion, please get in touch with us over socials. We are at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. That is at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aform.studio on email. Until next time, stay inspired.